Well, Ava, Lily, and I are on our way home to Ontario. It was a great weekend. It's been a long time since I just hung out with my daughter, and only my daughter. You know, we generally drive around quite a bit, but it's either the whole family or me, usually. Once in a blue moon, it's just Addie and I and Amy, because the kids are off with their friends, but very rarely is it ever just Ava and I, or Ollie and I. So it was nice to spend a weekend with my daughter. Just so happy with the way the horses trained, and then went out and had a couple of nice meals with Ava and did a little shopping. It was a nice break from a pretty stressful time of year. You know, before I start this, it's funny that Ava, I was just telling Ava, so next weekend I'm supposed to be in Michigan speaking at some sort of fractional ownership event set up by Crystal Sarah. I've known her for a long time now, since I started the stable. And this will be the second time I've actually spoken at Michigan State University now. It's not in front of the entire class. It's at a big agricultural event though, so it should be pretty cool and a lot of fun. So I was trying to get some information on what was available in the area, because I don't know much about Michigan. I mean, when I was a caretaker way back when I was 19, I spent some time in Detroit, but I don't really know if I want to bring my family to where I was hanging out in Detroit, where I was staying at Hazel Park Raceway. Pretty rough neighborhood. So it's funny how you remember things from your past that should have been long buried. I got a message from Crystal saying, "Oh, there's an arcade, a movie theater, tons of restaurants, university town." She goes, "And there's a rodeo on Friday night." Now, I've watched the rodeo, obviously. I don't know that I've ever watched. I did watch one live. That's what this story is based around. Back when I was a kid and I was just starting to drive. I was driving for a really, really nice guy. We've kind of lost touch. I run across him every so often. His name's Dan Quinn. And he lived in a small little town called Campbellford. Now, I'd frequently go up and visit him and go with his horses or whatever, and just hang out, you know. It was just a part of my life where that area, Belleville, Coburg, Peterborough, Campbellford, and everything in between there, and when I was living in Ottawa, going back and forth, it wasn't that far off the beaten path to stop in and see Dan. So this one time I was driving all his horses, so he said, "Come on up, we'll have a drink, and then we'll go to the rodeo." Yeah, okay, whatever. He goes, you ever been to a rodeo? I said, no, I haven't been, no. So we get to the rodeo, and he comes over. He comes over to me and he says, "Anthony, can you do us a favor?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." He goes, one of the riders didn't show up. He goes, "Could you fill in?" I said, "I've never rode a bull in my life." He goes, "It's not that hard." I said, "It looks kind of hard." He goes, "Well, if you can't," I said, "All right, I don't care, whatever." And he looks at me and goes, "That was a test." He says, "I was trying to figure out how crazy you were." And he said, "I still can't figure it out." I still don't know. He said, "You were literally going to go ride a bull." I said, "Well, you said it wasn't hard." And when I saw the text come in about bull riding on Friday night, I don't know why. I haven't thought about this in 20 years. And the first thought that came into my head was the time I was in Campbellford at the rodeo with Dan Quinn. So, as I said, just a fantastic weekend with my daughter, and you look at the horses racing. I look at yesterday, we had one, the day before one, and we're used to all summer having horses everywhere, spread out everywhere, missing horses because we have so many racing. We forgot that one was racing and had to go back and watch the replay. So I was trying to look at, a lot of our horses are getting very close now. All the ones I trained yesterday are within weeks of couple of weeks of probably schooling qualifying. A number of the horses in Ontario are training hard right now. Now, for some of the better horses, like Austral Hanover, who trained tremendous yesterday, you got to be careful, right? We got to look at the schedule and where he can race, because the last thing you want to do is say, well, he's ready. Oh, we have to race in the Open. Or like now when there's a 7 or 6 or whatever it is, it's not fair to him, and that would be not a wise decision. So we have to figure out when the proper time to have him ready is. Whereas a horse like Brace for Landing, who I thought trained good the other day, Amy was so discouraged because he's making breaks in the turns, free lagging. I said, all I have to do is snap the hobbles on this horse and it's game on. You don't have to worry about Brace for Landing. I was hoping that he would train down and be like, he doesn't need the hobbles. But don't worry about Brace for Landing, honey. I said, what I love about Brace for Landing now, he's still about 50 pounds underweight because he's so tall now. So I told her, I said, you have to focus on his diet. Don't worry about anything but putting some weight on. He's not skinny, but I don't want to get him that way, and I think he'd be much more effective, a little bit heavier anyway. So you worry about putting the weight on him. You don't have to worry about Brace for Landing training. All I have to do, and this is Brace for Landing with no overcheck. You know, this horse went from looking at everything. If you go back and look how fast and impressive he was in that Meadows race when I won with him, but go back and look what he did coming to the half. As we approached the turn, I was just trying to throttle him back, and he went to pull up a little bit, just being stupid. And he knew the difference. You can't train down in sets for 5 months and not know the difference. He was just being a goof. Now we can train him with an open head check, open bridle, no head check, and he's focused on his job. A little out of gear in the turns, but who cares? I'm not worried about that. The horse didn't forget how to go fast. Anyway, he trained great the other day. Wasn't that winded, actually. So what had happened was we went out to train Brace for Landing. Jimmy went with Brace for Landing. I went with Crantini. And James went with his horse, Hasty Bit. And it was just starting to get kind of muddy. So Crantini was in behind James, and he's throwing his head. But he wasn't throwing his head rude. He was just throwing his head because clumps of mud were hitting him. They were hitting me, too. I was moving my head. And I just moved him to the outside. He made a little break, came right back trotting, and I moved him to the outside, just sat out there. He was a little rolly in the turns, but what would happen was he touched himself in the field. We put bandages on him up front, and I think the bandages just screwed him up a little bit, and he ended up touching his right hind. I didn't have boots or anything on him. I trained him without them. Anyway, Crantini was good. Hasty Bit was very good. And then Brace for Landing running like every turn. So we had pulled up, and Jimmy's like, he seems fine in the straightaways. I just can't get him through the turns. I said, all right, now we want 1.5 miles. No, we want 1 mile. James just wanted to go a mile. This is a girl. We went 1 mile in 2:23. We pull up. I don't know what Jimmy had went. Like, he's way back. He's telling me, he just couldn't get him through the turns. I said, all right, switch. So we stopped the horses. I took Brace for Landing. He went back to the barn with Crantini. I jogged Brace for Landing around. I turned him and went 1 mile in 2:20. And he got a little out of gear in one turn. He got a little out of gear down by the wire, but he was really trotting down by the wire. Never get tired, though. So that just goes to show how fit he is right now. Both him, Crantini, and James' horse, Hasty Bit. And then all the horses we trained over here. We went 1.5 miles with all our 3-year-olds yesterday, and they all come a half in 104, 105, 106, which is hard to do. When you go, and this isn't walking, these are 3-year-olds going a half in 20, a half in 12, a half in 4, a half in 12, a half in 6. Like, that's hard to do. Most importantly is how they look afterwards. And none of them were blowing. None of them. Jason Mumby said, none of these horses were blowing. They all seemed good. Perfect. I'll tell you, the horse that I thought looked the best. Now, we did, just out of maintenance, just because I knew they bothered her last year, we had injected Cutie Cumber's knees with polyglycan, just a drop of betamethasone. She's not going to race for 3-4 weeks, so the betamethasone not going to matter. Same thing with Mo Power Baby. Again, those knees, they're back on their knees, both of them a little bit, so those knees bothered them last year. Before we got to a point where we're like, getting on the line a little bit. Let's just get out in front of this a little bit. Put a little polyglycan and just a drop of betamethasone on both their knees. So they were all fixed up yesterday, and they trained good. And they've been training very, very good. Those horses are all approaching the point where you just put them in the race bike and go with them. The only one out of the entire group that's a little two. We're on track to have Swinging Senorita ready for the Hackett, which is fine. But Austral Hanover is a problem because Austral Hanover doesn't have a whole lot of places to race. So I got to look at the schedule again. I didn't pay him into the Bunker Hill, and I think the first payment was last year. The way he felt yesterday, man. If the first payment is the 15th of March, which I don't think it is, but if it is, I might enter him in that. He was, I was impressed for a horse. So I'll tell you why I was so impressed. Little story here. So Austral Hanover was training at Tim's, come back to Jason's. He made a break on Jason McGinnis without hobbles on. He made a break, got pacey on Jason Merriman, made a break. So when I come back, this is now 3 breaks he made on them, and they had his head up and had some weight on him, because that's what we would do if they were 2-year-old trotters. I said, no, this guy doesn't roll that way. This is not Austral Hanover. Let his head down. We let his head way down. And I went out and trained him. He was okay, but he didn't feel awesome. That was Tuesday. That was Wednesday, I'm sorry. I come back on Saturday. Cindy said, Austral didn't eat all his breakfast today. He's a tiny temperature, and his back legs are stocked up. I said, leave him alone. You know, do him up real good today. Ask the vet to come and give him an anti-inflammatory for his temperature. And just give him a little mash at lunch. There's no rush with this guy. The vet came in and said, yeah, he looks a little down in the dumps. I said, well, we'll run some fluids through him, I believe. Dr. Lattès said run some fluids through him. Sure enough, little infection in his hind legs. A couple of days it cleaned up. His heels there must have been a lot of heat in there because his heels were really dry and cracked open a bit. So it was just a bad week for him. But he had a nice, easy week, nothing doing. I came and trained him Wednesday. He trained good, real good. He's starting to feel good again, like his old self. Let his head down again, took his Parabell boots off him, and when I came in, I said to Cindy, you can take that last Parabell boots off this guy. He's perfect now. He said he used to wear knee boots or have his knees taped up. I said, but I don't think he's going to need them this year. So we went out Saturday, and Jason had Columbus. I believe it was Columbus. In there. I'm not sure. Anyway, we had 4 in the set. I moved him to the front, 3 in the set. I moved him. No, it was Tailgate Buzz. It was Tailgate Buzz swinging Senorita, and Austral Hanover. I moved Austral Hanover to the front. We went the first half in 1:19, just a tick quicker than we wanted to, but that's okay. Went the second half in 1:11, 1:12, and we picked it up the last half in 1:04, and I was on the front. Swinging Senorita was coming to me. Tailgate Buzz was coming up the inside, and I had a really, really big hold on Austral Hanover for a horse going 1.5 miles training back. I had a big hold of him, and he finished up super strong. And I was very happy with the other 2, but Austral Hanover just felt like his old self. Right? He came to play, and just very, very impressed with the way the horse looked. Now, this week's. We can talk about the videos. We have more Locatelli's Indigo. You know, somebody said Haunted House didn't race that good last night. Pace 52-2. You know, he can only go so fast. He's learning. You know, this horse was still not that many starts under his belt. For him to leave, get stretched to the quarter, and then come out again in the last turn. And I think he's one of those horses that doesn't like to be too wide in the last turn. I think Mark told me that. Anyway, Jody made the right move as far as racing goes. But as far as reality goes, the horse just can't pace 49, 50, 51 right now, especially with 2 moves. You know, if he floats over to the front, lands in the 2-hole, and follows, I think he'd probably pace 51. And that's not Jody's fault. That's just the way the race went. Somebody said, you know, a little disappointed with his race. I wasn't disappointed. Well, that was a reality check. That horse got a lot of growing and a lot of speed to put into himself. I see there was a broken equipment notation on his line. I have no idea what that was. It could have been a line pole. It could have been a shoe. It could have been a million things. I didn't talk to Harry about it today, but I'm not worried about him. I mean, listen, and this ties into what I was going to talk about here today. Not just the staking. We'll get to that in a second, but different jurisdictions. I have every intention of sending a stable of horses, a small stable of horses, to Oak Grove, Kentucky when they open up last year. We had a lot of luck there. We have some 2-year-olds that can race there before their stakes start. Now, Pennsylvania and Ohio is a little tight, right? They start like June 13th, but New Jersey, right on. You race the horses right up through there. You look at a horse like a horse that was a Lover's Play, I believe, is one that fits there, and she looks amazing. One of her better horses actually fits there. Pickpocket fits there also. That's I think it goes for like 50, 50, and 100 if I'm not mistaken. And I guess the transition is, do we want to have them ready June 13th, and will that take away from the end of the year for horses that we have paid into the Breeders' Crown? Yes, that's a tough thing to traverse. We can only look in hindsight and say, maybe we shouldn't have went to Kentucky with that horse. But I'm also the first person to say, maybe we shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth. Maybe we should take the money that's offered to us when it's offered to us. And good things can still happen. When you look at Una Madonna last year, how well did that work out for us? I know it wasn't planned that way, but I mean, how well did that work out for the stable.ca selling that filly? I think that was a great stroke of business for us. And obviously you're not going to do that all the time, but I don't think you can ever do wrong putting a horse in a situation to win races. Nobody wants to go to the Breeders' Crown and say, I think he was a little tired. Even a horse like Fantini last year, yeah, he left a lot of money on the table, but he did make $185,000, right? And obviously a lot of that was chewed up entering him in the Mohawk Millions, but again, that's racing. This is built around gambling, and I don't think, in hindsight, every single one of us wishes we didn't. But at the time, for us to race in these big races, there's going to be a time when we have to look and say, okay, do we get the money now, or do we wait for later? I don't think it's wrong of anybody. I think it's human nature to say, you take the money when it's offered to you. And I think that's a position we're in right now. So when it comes to Oak Grove, they're opening up soon. I believe maybe April. I had spoke to the race secretary. He told me he could get me stalls. Now, hopefully they'll be good stalls. And if they're not, the connection that we made with Verlin Yoder on purchasing Yo Mister, he said, Anthony, I live in Columbia, Kentucky. I'm under 2 hours from virtually every track in Kentucky, Lexington, Oak Grove, and Corbin. If you want some stalls, I can probably help you out. Wow, that's good. Gave him good money for his horse, so... and we'll talk about Yo Mister and a lot of those horses in just a second, but I think having 10 or so horses at Oak Grove, leaving that door open, and then if we want to send our 2-year-olds down there for the start, or I don't know if we have any 3-year-olds, I think we do, that are eligible, but is that a place we want to go to? Having and seeing the racing and the money they went for last year, I think it's a great step. I think it's a real wise move putting some of those horses. When you talk about, okay, what horses? If Sintra finds the open company tough in Mohawk, if he's bouncing around and we're like, geez, he just can't race that open level. Oak Grove, I mean, and I'm trying to get Eric Padlin and his, I think that's how you say your name. If he isn't, I apologize, Eric. Eric that works for us seems to be a real good horse person and got a really nice feel for the young horses. He's been a real asset. We've been so lucky to stumble across people like Jason Merriman, like Eric, and a number of other people that have come to help us. And Eric, I had mentioned to him, if you want to go to Kentucky, and be a trainer for the stable, then I'd be happy to work with you on that. And I think he's interested. Obviously, he's a little older gentleman. Not old, but he's a little older gentleman, and him and his wife seem to work their butts off and really love the horses. So sending him a horse like Sintra would be like moving him from Harry to Harry. And I'm not trying to equate training abilities. I just mean the mentality and the approach to racing. Just good old horse people that take care of the horses. So I think Eric would be a perfect fit for a horse like Sintra if we sent him there. Atlas Hanover also. I had said to Jimmy the other day, we'll talk about him. I guess I can bounce around a little bit. I spoke to Jimmy quite a bit the other day about Atlas. He said, I don't think that was a good move coming first over from fifth, and I understand the gentleman was just trying to pick up cover and it didn't materialize. We see that happen all the time at Mohawk also. He said, 49 was lots. He said, let's try him one more time, and if if you're going to rest him and you want to move him around, then so be it. That's fine. And Jimmy's always level-headed like that, so I like talking to him about the horses. So I said, yeah, go ahead, put him back in and tell me what you think. And then, because what I would like to do is rest him 2 or 3 weeks and send him to Oak Grove. I think that would be a awesome place for a horse like Atlas Hanover. Horses like that we're looking for a spot for. Even a horse like Dustin Hanover, when he gets out of that non-winners of 2 I suspect he'll do very well in Pennsylvania next week for Tim racing in that Non-Winners of 2 series. Once he gets out of there, if we have a lot of luck with him, he's going to have like 5 wins. So where do we race him? Do we find a claimer for him? Do we send him back to Ontario and race him in the 35 claimer portion of the Non-Winners of 2? We can do that. Or we can see what's available in Kentucky for him too. That's a great track. You know, it reminds me a lot of Georgian Downs. And if they banked it this year, which I hope they did, it would be just a speedway there and a really nice track to race on. You know, if I can find somebody in the Cleveland area with a small plane, there's a regional airport 2 minutes from Oak Grove. 2-3 minutes. It's right there. Otherwise, you have to fly into Nashville, which is probably an expensive flight, and an hour from Oak Grove. So I'll figure it out either way. But I think having the door open for some of these other jurisdictions is important for us also. You know, and that leads into another horse, Sister Solange. A lot of people message me saying, Anthony, you know, are we going to race her a lot in New York? We race her once. I don't really want to get a license. I don't blame you. I see the problem. I understand it. And I'll talk to Megan about it. I mean, maybe she could go to the Pocono. She's not going anywhere next week. You know, Megan's going to need a week to start getting her appetite up. I was happy with how she qualified in 58, but the filly is skinny, and she's a real picky eater, borderline anorexic. I've never seen her stick her hoof in her mouth, but she's really skinny, and Megan had good luck. I think a smaller operation like Megan's, lots of field time, you know, I think will help just little by little put weight on her. She's not a racetrack horse, not right now. She's not a horse to be at a racetrack, in my opinion, right now. So we'll see how things work out with Sister Solange. I think Megan is leaning towards skipping the next leg of the claiming series with odds on Delray, racing him in the next leg. You know, she doesn't want to lose the horse, I guess. Even though it would be a windfall for us in regards to the claiming price. You know, she likes the horse, and it's hard to find a good horse. You know, I don't like claimers for a lot of reasons, right? But finding one is like finding a car, right? You hope that you don't get a lemon, but you don't really know until you drive it around a little bit. And you know, Megan knows and likes the horse very much and is working with him, and she does such a great job. You know, I feel bad sometimes to see Megan and Scotty and Brett and Stacy, but you know, they're less hands-on than the females in that relationship. You know, Stacy does all the work, works her butt off, and Brett's there to help too, and a very good horse person. But Stacy puts a lot of work into those horses. When they race at the Meadows, she's there at the Meadows. You know, and that's, I appreciate that. You know, as somebody that's in business with those women, they do just a tremendous job. And Megan too. You know, going away with her and Scotty. I never told anybody this. So we were playing water polo, and Megan is ferociously competitive, which I love because we all are also. And we were playing water polo, and she's a good goaltender. Nobody can score on her. And, you know, you throw the ball. You couldn't score on her. So I went to throw the ball, and I splashed her in the face and threw the ball and scored. She was very angry. Luckily, I'm a pretty decent swimmer because she was pretty angry when I did it. I found it hilarious. I don't think she found it as funny right away. But it was nice to get away with her and Scotty, and like, I know Scott Zeron very, very well. You know, it's not like I've been over to his house and we ate dinner and hung out and played cards, but, you know, I know Scotty. Raced against him, talked to him. Probably one of the most methodical human beings I've ever met. And it was actually nice to talk to him and pick his brain. You know, somebody that's rational and sane and has a serious grip on their personal and financial life. It was really actually eye-opening to talk to Scotty. And, you know, the thing I love about Scotty is he's always at arm's length from everything and everyone. It seems, anyway. Tight with his family. But always willing to help to a certain extent, right? And I like that about him, and it was really nice to talk to him. You know, even though I'm a lot older than him, me and Scotty couldn't be any further apart. I guess not in every aspect, you know, but when it comes to our my life is much more chaotic, and Scotty's found a way to really polish his up so that it appears anyway he has a true grasp of every facet of his life, which is it's you get jealous when you talk to him, to be honest, that he can have such control over everything in his life is it's impressive. It's impressive. And to go away with them and learn a little more about Megan and learn about, I already knew about Scotty anyway. Nothing surprises me about Scotty, but it was a lot of fun. And being in business with those people, it helps us also, right? Not just in the literal sense, but the metaphorical sense also, in the way that surrounding yourself. You see it, how the stable has succeeded, being around Kelly Spencer, being around Curtis McDonald, being around James McDonald. It's not shocking that we do well. We work our butts off, and we surround ourselves with intelligent, hardworking, good people. And I think an extension of that are the people we get involved with. Stacy loves her job, takes it very, very seriously. A little rough around the edges, much like I am, growing up in this industry, but very driven and very direct. And Megan, working for a world-class trainer for a long time, gave her a different view. Always horse first, but gives her a different view of the horses also. And then, you just sprinkle on a little chaos that I provide, and lo and behold, poof, you have the stable. But it's so nice to be involved in them, and I want to continue to be. And obviously, my brother last year, it's tough. I'm sure it's tough for people that get a little older in the game, and I'm sure it was tough for John Campbell. I had quite a few conversations with John Campbell last week, and obviously when you get a chance to bounce ideas off of some of the royalty of horse racing, so to speak, it's always important. And to see how John Campbell walked away from racing seemingly healthy, because from what I could see anyway, he just felt it was his time. That was impressive also. Not many people in this industry get to do that. And, he got to run the Hamiltonian Society and be an ambassador for horse racing, which he should be. He's a good one. But when you look at my brother Mark, it's tough to get a little bit older, you forget. And I'm sure this happens to every athlete. You just don't think it's your time yet. And, Mark's gone from running the roads and trying to be, Mark McDonald, to understanding that he has a family now with Aaliyah and his daughter Kiki, and what's next for him. And he wants to train some horses. Now, Mark is not like me. Mark is super meticulous. So Mark called me and talked to me for an hour yesterday about shoeing on the horse that we have for him. Many of you forgot we have him, H.L. Ballou. Mark owns a quarter of the horse, and this is how good this horse must be, or how good he thought he was. Mark bought a quarter of him. My brother wouldn't give a dime to see a hot dog bark, right? He is super cheap, but that's just Mark. And I think it goes back to Mark being so quiet, right? I literally, and I tell people this all the time, this isn't a secret, but I literally watched when Mark was working for a gentleman and he passed away, and he played a big role in our lives. Mark was working for him in Windsor, and he hadn't got to the bank to put Mark's pay in on Friday. Mark didn't have any money. And rather than ask somebody for money, Mark didn't eat the entire weekend. That's a literally true story. And never told a soul. Never told a soul. Might have had some crackers or something. I have no idea what he had, but I know he didn't have normal food. And, but Mark has just always been reserved, and everything is Mark. It's almost like Mark against the world. And when he gets to that point, I have to step in and say, not really a big deal. But you guys know people like that. People that just, and it's not that he's bad in any way. That's just how my brother is. God love him. But when it comes to our personalities, polar opposites. So, perfect example. So this is how the sale of Punch the Clock came about. And I think I can ramble a bit. I have 4 hours. I don't know how much time you have, but I have 4 hours. So this is how the sale of Punch the Clock went. We had a number of horses on our list. You guys know that. I think I went over a number of the lists with you before the sales. Punch the Clock was on there, but she was way down the list. And truthfully speaking, I thought we would get one, if not two, of the horses on that list long before Punch the Clock ever came in the ring. All the horses went for too much money. Keep in mind, I knew at the time Daniel Cordina was over here, and he was the one driving me to bid on, and you guys know, we were the underbidders on Beach Glass's sister that went for $380,000. The driving force behind that was the fact that Daniel Cordina was going to pick up a large portion of the horse, which was fine. I didn't want to waste his money. I tried to do my best. It's hard when you got really top pedigree horses. It's hard to price them in a pragmatic way. It's really tough to do. So we got to a point where I just said, Daniel, I just don't think this filly is worth this. And we let her go. Same with Tall Dark Stranger's brother. We were the underbidders on Tall Dark Stranger's brother. Now, knowing that I had Daniel, I just assumed we would get one, if not two, of these horses. We got none of them. Now, I'm not worried. There's tons of good horses left, but I hadn't gotten to Punch the Clock yet. Didn't do a video on her, I don't believe. No, of course I didn't. I didn't do a video on her. She's in the back ring. So, my brother Mark, you know how we operate. We had 300 horses in the sale that we were interested in. Mark had 4, maybe 5. So he was looking at them. But of course, when you go look at 5 horses that you picked out in the sale, and they're legitimately nice horses, they're probably going to go for more than you think. If you're pricing them for you to buy them, they're probably going to go for more than you think. So Mark is super laser focused on these 5. I told him I'm looking at a ton of horses. I looked, the 5 that he had picked weren't even on my list, to be honest, for a variety of reasons. And none of them bad. They just weren't on my list. Punch the Clock comes in the back ring. I call a couple of people, did you look at Punch the Clock? One of them had vetted her out, she vetted clean. Now, this is third person, right? Or no, it's still, I'm on the phone with somebody that said, yes, I vetted her out, she vetted out clean. I had already bought a horse. I trust the person I talked to on the phone. I'm not going to tell you who it was. So I'm like, okay. Now there's 5 horses in the back ring. I go over and I watch Punch the Clock walk towards me. Tiny bit pigeon-toed. A lot of the tactical landings were. I'm not worried about that anyway. Everything else looks perfect. Man, she's a pretty filly. I hadn't seen her yet. Beautiful black blaze on her. Her legs are put together well. You know what she looks like? And I don't want to drop names in that regard, but I'll just tell you who she looked like, minus the white blaze. Was Una Madonna. Looked just like her. I mean, just like her. So, Amy's over there, and Amy knew I went over to look at her, but Mark didn't. Mark didn't know that I went over there and looked at her. And neither did Steve or anybody else. I think Steve was there. Or anybody else. Didn't know. I just walked away, and I told Amy, I'm going to look like filly. So I come back and said, gee, she's a good-looking filly. So Amy now knows. She goes, what do you think she's worth? I said, 200, 220. I said, honey, is a broodmare. And I knew all the story about how the fillies weren't that good out of that family. But one of those okay fillies had just thrown Instagram model. So that makes her even worth more on the broodmare side. Because her sister, who was okay, by okay I mean no good, just threw one of the better horses in North America. So it even strengthens my point. But now I'm thinking, we just get outbid this. This thing might go for $500,000. I had no idea. And Mark was telling me how Ray liked the filly. Everybody liked the filly. Well, if everybody likes the filly, and her sister threw Instagram model, and her brother's King of the North, but remember, at this time, King of the North hadn't been King of the North as a 3-year-old. All he was a horse that made a break in the Hamiltonian and looked okay in Kentucky. He hadn't won the Breeders' Crown. He hadn't won in 51. He wasn't syndicated as a stud. None of this had taken place yet. Bidding starts. Mark disappears somewhere. Him and his buddy were going to look at a horse, or they were over in the corner. He was right there, but he disappeared a little bit. Bidding starts. I get in at 140. It slowed down a little bit. 140, 145. I see who's bidding. Now, I'm not going to drop names, but I see there's 2 people bidding on the other side of the ring, and I can guarantee you they have vetted her out. 1,000% for sure. Now, keep in mind, I personally did not speak to my vet about Punch the Clock. I spoke to a person who I trust very much, who did vet her out and said she passed cleanly. And I'm looking at 2 people bidding against me that I know for sure vetted her out. For sure vetted her out. 150, 155, 160, 165, 170. This guy turns around. He's out. Other guy, he doesn't see me, but I see him. 175, 175. He's talking to his partner, 175. Now the bidder's looking at me. He knows I'm still in. 180, 180. I see the guy. I'm looking right at him. He still doesn't see me. I'm looking right at him across the ring. 180, 180, 180. He turns away. I know I got him. 180, bang, hammer goes down. Amy goes, did we get her? Listen, she knows. Everybody asks you, did you get her? You just saw it. You know I got her. It's like coming up to your teammate. Did you score? Yeah, you just watched me score. I just put the puck in the net. So Amy goes, did we get her? I said, yeah, we got her. So anyway, they bring the ticket over. I sign the ticket. Now, as I'm signing the ticket, Mark comes by. And he goes, oh, you got one, did you, big dog? I said, yeah. He goes, who'd you get? He looks down, he sees the name, and he goes, how'd you get her? I said, well, Mark, so this is the process. You put your finger in the air, or in this case, my eye pen in the air, just like this. And then that guy up there, he goes, will you shut up, you idiot? He goes, I thought, right, I was going to buy that filly. I said, well, I can tell you one thing. The people over there were bidding against me. And I believe that gentleman right there was the underbidder. He goes, when did you go see her? Because Mark was with me the whole time, virtually in Kentucky. And we definitely would have talked about King of the North's sister, other than in passing over dinner. I said, no, I never went and looked at her. I saw her in the back ring, and then I called somebody that had vetted her out. I was looking at the two people bidding against me, and I knew for sure that they had definitely vetted her out. He said, you never went and looked at her? I said, yes, I looked at her in the back ring. No, but you never had her out of her stall? No, I didn't, no. What do you want me to look at? She's a horse. She's got 4 legs. They're all on straight, and she's King of the North's sister. What do you want me to do? I was comfortable and confident that she was vetted out because of the person I talked to, and I know that those two people vetted her out for sure. To him, and Mark is just like this. Mark spent 45 minutes with me yesterday talking about H.L. Blues shooting, so he still didn't believe me. Anyway, Steve Jones, Cameo Hills, his son comes up. I think his name's Tyler. Might have been the other kid. I'm not sure. Anyway, he comes up and Mark goes, hey. He looks at me and goes, that was a good buy. And I said, I hope so. I said, gee, she's a pretty little thing, eh? And he goes, yeah, she's really nice, fiery. Mark goes, hey, did he have this horse out of the stall? He goes, what do you mean? He said, did he come over? Did he go over to Cameo Hills and pull her out? And he goes, nope. He goes, no, he didn't. And he goes, well, could Steve? And he goes, I'm the one that takes her out of the stall, no one else. He did not have her out of the stall. Mark looked at me with the most confused face I think I've ever seen on him. I said, Mark, you can either shit or get off the pot. You know, we didn't get the horse we wanted, and that filly there was worth a lot of money. The only reason I didn't want to pay $250,000 for Punch and Clock. So when I was looking at our high-end horse, a horse that I thought we'd spend a lot for, between $160,000 and a little bit more, given what horse it was and who it was. Beach Class's sister, yes. Tall Dark Stranger's brother, yes. King of the North's sister, maybe not. But at 180, I can justify it, especially when I know she's been vetted out, and she is a good-looking filly. And for 10 minutes, he didn't talk. He didn't talk about it. He just kept shaking his head and looking at the ticket. Maybe not 10 minutes, but that's my brother. That never would have happened. If she'd have went for $45,000, Mark wouldn't have bought her, because he himself. Now in that case, hold on. He did know King of the North and he did know the filly, but let's say that was a different filly that somebody else was driving, came from another farm that Mark didn't know. The information that he had was not sufficient enough. That I had would not be even remotely sufficient enough to bet on that horse, because that's my brother. And by the way, he didn't get any of the 5 horses he wanted, so I think he ended up getting his horse in Harrisburg, if I'm not mistaken. Well, maybe he did get one, I'm not sure. Anyway, long story, and I'm going to drag this out because I can. Just the way it is. It was a good story, though. A long story about my brother and how, as a trainer, Mark can probably have 5 horses. Because I learned a long time ago you do have to sleep, you do have to eat, and there's only so much in your control. Shoeing, vet work, training, jogging, trying to understand what a horse is doing, yes, but that can't consume your life, or you won't have a life, and you won't be able to train horses. So when it comes to a lot of the babies, Ready for Landing made that break again the other day, and Sarah loves him. She's a caretaker of him. She was the caretaker of him in Ohio. She said, "What's he doing?" He's just making mistakes. He's a baby. A little tricky situation because if you put too much weight on him, he gets up near his elbows, but he's going to need a little weight and a tighter hobble. He will trot those turns. Of that, I guarantee you. Because there's no reason for him not to. So he will trot them. I will get him through them. And Mark calls me about the shoeing on HL Blue. HL Blue's 5-6 weeks minimum from the races. Maybe 2 months. Still. He's just getting into gear. I said, Mark, you want a mile at 229, 230. A racehorse, he could be in between gears, and maybe he just doesn't look comfortable, but if you speed him up and go a quarter in 32 seconds, he'll look fine. Yeah, that's probably it. And I love it. I love the want for perfection every trainer has inside them. But you have to understand, and I talk to James about this all the time, you don't have to be perfect to be standing in the winner's circle. Your horse doesn't have to be perfect to be standing in the winner's circle. What's going on with the road here? That's better. And that's the one thing that a lot of trainers fall into that trap, right? That search for perfection. Just have them good. Just have the horses good. You're never going to have them perfect. And that's the one thing about Mark is he'll pull his hair out. Like I'll see him in August to be his 5 of our horses. Bald, weigh about 85 pounds, chewing on his nails. That's just him. But he will have some horses for us on the East Coast. Megan will continue to have horses for us on the East Coast also. I had a little blowback for sending Blue Tesla to Saratoga. Well, Blue Tesla's got a tie-up issue. That's her problem. I trained her in 58, but when we schooled her on 58, she'd had Banamine in her system still from the day before. Now, schoolers aren't tested. It's more of just a training trip. And I think that played a major role in that training session being so good. She's not lame, but I think it did alleviate some of the symptoms of the tying up. So by sending her down to Mark and Melissa Beckwith, they have fields in their own farm there too. They can turn her out there, race her, much like they did with Patrick DePerona and how they turned him around now. She is far from Patrick DePerona, but she's always going to be worth money. And much like the horses we sold last week, she is on a short leash, and we will continue to weed these horses out over the next few weeks. The 3-year-olds that are getting close, they're not all going to be stable horses come June. You know that. I had a great conversation with Johnny the other day, one of our clients. A great sounding board, and has been for a very long time for me. And Johnny, Greg, Steve, all these people play a major role. John, Jim, you guys know who you are. Play major roles in helping guide along the way. And Johnny said, I just don't see paying the Ohio breds into 2 conferences being worth it. It's $920 US, and if we move one of these horses, you'll never get your money back. You're wrong. And I told Johnny didn't like that, because usually he's pretty pragmatic guy and very analytical. And I can't stress enough that those fares to the people in Ohio mean a big thing. It's a big deal. A lot of the smaller guys in Ohio race at the fairs. And to say the first question, every single horse I've sold in Ohio, any Ohio bred, the first question asked is, what fairs are they paid into? Or are they paid into fairs? And what else are they paid into? Not putting these horses in the fairs, even the ones that might be sold, in my opinion, would be a huge mistake. It would not garner the same attention to the horses as it would otherwise. And I believe that 920 will most definitely come back when we sell the horses. And that's my take on it. I don't talk about investing very much in horse racing because it's a bad idea. But if we're going to race horses, the investment we put into those horses, like the staking, I think that's how it should be treated in many cases. And there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with that, and that's fine. But that's a stance we're going to take on it. I proved it a couple of times with horses, and you might say, well, okay, it worked out for Una Madonna, but it didn't work out for a number of other ones. But how do you know? If we sold them, how do you know we wouldn't have got 25% less if they weren't eligible for those races? Now, later in the season, it doesn't matter. The only stake races left, you have the Liberty Bell and the Simpson, and the horses aren't good enough to race them. It really doesn't matter. But if you're looking at moving the horses in the earlier parts of the summer, it absolutely matters. To us now, a perfect example is what we did this summer. When we bought Atlas Hanover, I was going to be out of the bidding, and then realized he was still eligible, as a couple of our clients did. Tom did right away. So did Randy right away. Said the horse still eligible to Little Brown Jug. Now, he didn't look like a Little Brown Jug horse, but he's still eligible to it. And that made him a little bit more enticing to the people that were going to buy him in the stable. And that's a perfect example. We would have been done bidding on Atlas Hanover well earlier than we bought him for. I mean, he was a good purchase, regardless of what happens from here on in. The horse was a great purchase. We wouldn't have owned him if he was not eligible to Little Brown Jug. Plain and simple, it would not have happened. Yeah. The horse was third in the elimination. I got parked in the final, but it's not the point. It's the point that we could race him. So, and that is a hard concept to grasp sometimes, because, you know, reality will tell you that no one will care. Do you need help there? No one will care what the horses are eligible to if the horses don't appear good. But the fair program in Ohio is very aggressive. I would say the vast majority of horsemen, maybe not the vast, but the majority of horsemen in Ohio race in the fairs, or their horses race in the fairs. And a lot of the owners, they take it very seriously. So, again, the staking part is a little more tricky for us than it normally would be. You know, the great thing about Ohio is most of the payments are made this month. This month's payment is brutal. I guess it goes without saying, for those of you who have balances with the stable, and I hate asking people. I would much rather just have a line of credit and pay it back down when they come in, but I'm not there yet. Right? I'm just not to that point yet. So if you do have a balance, it would be appreciated if you could get the check here or the funds here before the 15th of March. A pretty substantial staking bill will be due at that point. So, staking the horses is not perfect. It's a flawed system, and I had talked to John Campbell about it last week. And, you know, some valid points come in from our clients. And probably the easiest one came from one of our clients, said, why don't you just, rather than build them 15 days in advance, build them 6 weeks in advance or a month in advance? I guess that would be the easiest way to do it. A month or 6 weeks should surely give everybody enough time to do it. So yeah, it could be. My only thinking about staking at the sales would be to incentivize people to do it. One, as far as mortality, God forbid if you get a horse pass away, I'm sure you can insure those stake payments also along with the horse. But, and this is what I'd said to John Campbell, if there was a package put together, okay, here's the major stake races, you know, that bill would be X. Let's say it's $6,000. Well, if you buy that package at the sale, it's $5,400, 10% off. You can incentivize people too, and you'd see a lot more people stake their horses in that regard, and I think we would, quite frankly. You would have the option to, but that incentive would make a big deal. Now, easier said than done, because this would have to be passed. The rule, I guess there's a rule against it in the USDA. The USDA could change the rule to accommodate this. The Hamiltonian Society could aggressively move to do it in 2024, but are they going to? The one thing our industry has never been known for is being super, I almost said super again, for being very proactive. And this is how they stake in Australia, which I told you guys the story before. So I just thought it would be better for the industry as a whole. There would definitely be more money come in. The same people that wanted to stake in February, March, and April could. I don't think that would change. But I think there would be a lot more movement. You know, as I said to John, for us, you know, to buy a horse like Punch the Clock, you know, we were probably going to go to 190, 200, but we got her for 180. So there is a window there. You'd say, well, guys, for $9,250, you know, we'll get a 10% discount on, and we would stake the horses. Anyway, will it come about? Probably not. But I thought I'd put it out there anyway. Made sense to me. So we are at 49 minutes now. You know, I do want to spend the day talking about horses. I looked at the horses right now, you know, a little watered down, stable, but we do have 33 3-year-olds on the way and a number of 2-year-olds that are interesting. You know, as I made this list, I started to get a smile on my face when I look at that are under our roof and under our care. I'll tell you what, I'll just run through them real quick because I don't want to go too long. Austral Hanover, I think, is going to have a very, very good 2023. Atlas Hanover, we can race him wherever we want. He's going to be a handy type of horse. Brace for Landing, goes without saying what I think about him. Carter Michael Deal is 4. Cutie Cumber, I think, could be a very, very good 3-year-old. And again, training down great, looking great. I can't wait to see what she's going to look like. I didn't put in what I would consider the foot soldiers, right? This road is brutal. I didn't put those horses in the mix. The ones I put in were the ones that I think have a shot to move forward in a big way or played a major role as a 2-year-old. Five Fish Species, again, grown up, big. She's much bigger now. I think she has she'll have every opportunity to be a good 3-year-old. Gandalf the Black, you may say, well, more of a foot soldier type. I don't think so. This horse showed a lot of grit and determination to be an okay 2-year-old. I think he's going to be a decent 3-year-old. Now, the deep end of the pool in 3-year-old division for Pacers in Ontario is deep. But that doesn't mean he can't be a very, very good horse for us in 2023. Good as him, a horse that was on a roll and looked like our next open trotter and ended up fracturing his foot. But that fracture is healing in nicely, and he will be racing in 2023. As I said to Stacy, just take your time. Do you think anybody cares if he's ready in September or October or November? Just take your time with him. He'll be ready when he's ready. Horn Player, another filly, ready to go. She's going to school. She is going to school on Monday. Can't wait to see how she does. How the hell? He's borderline foot soldier type. I guess maybe I overstepped here, but there's also 1 in 54, I think, or 55. Look very good. We operated on his knees, and he's coming back very good. I am interested in How the Hell and how he's going to be in 2023. JK Victory goes without saying, one of the more expensive horses we've ever bought. Had a bit of a rough start so far. We're just trying to get all the kinks out of him. I do want to keep him in Ontario. We did float the idea of sending him back to New Jersey with Ron Burke, but he was full, and that's classes. And I didn't want to just send the horse to Megan and say, hey, fix him. So I don't like what I see, make him better. So we can do that. But I think it's best if we look into it ourselves first. So he is also going to be schooling on Monday. Kings County goes without saying, a horse made the most of any horse we've ever had in 1 year so far. We're always looking to break records, but it's going to be tough to beat that one with a serious stake horse. For an aged horse to make $225,000 or $230,000 in one season is a pretty big deal. And Kings County is going to breed our 6 mares. Not literally, but probably wishes he did. But he's going to inseminate our 6 mares in Pennsylvania. Hopefully next week we'll have them all ready to go. Kings County's back home, putting some weight on, looking good. And Brett and Stacey are going to have him ready for the 2023 season. Landing Strip, again, a horse that I think we castrated him. He put a ton of weight on. He's training back very, very good. I can't wait to see this horse race. Locatelli goes without saying, he's been a great trotter for us. Looks like money. Graduate and all the major 4-year-old stakes starting in June. No Free Lunch. Here's a horse that paced 49 from 25 multiple times at the end of it. He's now about 3 weeks from training, I believe. He's been jogging the whole time. Everything is starting to look great on him. Those 2 old lines in that right front are gone. They may not have posed a problem. They're not gone, but they may not have posed a problem to begin with. But when you look at a little black spot in his left front and some old lines in his right front, they play off one another. So just take the time, get them right, get the corks off them, and away we go. And I think that will pay dividends down the road. So good job by the vet, Dr. Bozajac and Harry, to get that all done. And Nellie and her mom for cleaning him up good. Nothing But a Dreamer looks like a monster training down. I can't wait to see him. Somebody sent me a message the other day and said, can we not pay him into the Breeders' Crown? No, to do that's $10,400. We'd have to supplement him. I'd rather not. And I didn't want to go to Indiana if we weren't going to the Breeders' Crown, which I'll stand behind that. I think there's more than enough racing for Nothing But a Dreamer in 2023. We paid him into plenty. Patrick DeParana is back in Ohio right now. He's at Northfield Park. We got him on the walker for a little bit. I told Jason, not a ton of track work with this guy. Very minimal track work. Keep his stress level down. See if we can put a little bit of weight on him. We'll put him in the bike in a week and go a mile and 25 and go a mile and 20, 210, probably qualify him and then send him back to get him ready to race at Plainridge. But again, was a horse that made nothing but money for us last year. Just been a really, really nice horse. Per Lucky, we bought him. He looked, he's okay, but that rest and then he come back. Now, he's not an open trotter at Northfield. Is he going to go back to Illinois? Is that a horse we take to Kentucky? Sky's the limit for this guy. Jason's done a great job with him. I'm less likely to move him right now because Jason has him trotting really good. I hope that he doesn't have to stay up in the open for very much longer. He can bounce around a little bit. If they let us do that, fine. Right? But he is a really, really nice horse. Renegade Gypsy has come back great. Now, this is a horse that last year, I had pushed selling him. Everybody knew that. And I took some flack for it. But I just thought, it's so hard for these 4-year-olds to transition. I don't know. And then him and Resolute Bay went out and beat the horses he was going to have to transition and race against. There's no need to get rid of him. Horse looks fantastic. I see him in the barn every day. He looks great. Resolute Bay looks great also. He's the next one on the list. There's a horse that trotted 53. Went at 1 in 53, but looks amazing. I know James thought, he's small, he's red. I don't know. Is he going to be a good horse? He's already been a good horse. Just a nice horse, and I think he's going to do good for the stable for quite a long time. Cintra, again, what a pickup he was last year. Although I say it all the time, I don't really have a bucket list. If I did, I suppose it would be unfair as an Islander not to have winning the Gold Cup and Saucer in that bucket list, and he took care of that for me, and him and I will always be joined in history for that, and just so lucky to have such a nice horse like him. Smoking Hot Irish Girl, a lot of people might say, I don't know, Anthony, you're stretching now. Best race of her life was her last start. Jason said she's training down good. This is a filly with lots of pedigree. This is a sister to Yes. A full sister to Yes, if I'm not mistaken. And I think could be a very, very good horse in 2023. I could be wrong. She might be a grassroots filly. She might be just a meat and potatoes type horse, but I don't think so. I think she could. The sky's the limit for this filly, and I think she could be a really good filly. Swinging, jumping over a bunch of horses here. Spitfire Overseas. James trained him last week, so what a nice horse. Just a beautiful horse. And I agree. I haven't sat behind him this year, but I've seen him on the track. He looks amazing. Swinging Senorita. Again, the richest 2-year-old we've ever had. Made $202,000 as a 2-year-old. Has been a very good horse and is training back very good. Like what I see from Swinging Senorita. Tactical mounts. Again, tons of speed. A little squirrely last year, but she's putting it all together, and she looks really good training back right now. She's at least 6 weeks from the races, though. She's not as close as the other horses. 3 Point Blue Chip. We forget what he did for us at 2, put us on the map in the Grand Circuit level anyway, and then had so many high hopes for this horse at 3, and just showed us how tough racing can be when he had fractured his foot and ended his 3-year-old season. He got to race once as a 3-year-old that didn't go well. We did everything to get him ready, and Julie, Tom, Andy, all the vets, all the surgeons that were involved with getting him ready, I think everybody did the best they could. It just wasn't possible. Close, but wasn't possible. So he's getting all the time off he needs for it to completely heal. 100% completely heal. We were going to breed him, but under semen analysis, they said that he wasn't really viable. So whether that's because he's a 3-year-old or whether he couldn't, I suspect it's because he's a 3-year-old. Whether we try that again later on in his life, I don't know, but I know he'll be back to race as a 4-year-old at some point. Took a dive off Dipper's been great, and I know this is a cross family horse, not really technically a stable horse, but it is trained by us, and he's been racing good. He isn't quite, much like Per Lucky, not quite an open horse, but does very well in the classes underneath. So hopefully we can stay out of the open more and stay in the bottom classes a little bit more. Unbeatable Kemp is coming back. The sky's the limit for this guy. There was no serious issues. He had an old line in his knee that had been there forever. And, just some stuff that I think was attributed to corks. We get the corks off, and he's qualifying tomorrow. I'm going to qualify Unbeatable Kemp because he's in with White Tiger. Warwi Yuri, yes, this might have been a stretch to put on here, but the way he looked the other day, knowing his breeding and seeing how he trained, I really do think we did right by this horse. He looked very, very good the other day. Very nice looking horse. White Tiger, what can you say? The horse has been great for us. He's made over $400,000. He'll probably get to $500,000 for us too. He's just done a great job on the track, and I think he's just hitting his best stride now. World for 2, interesting horse here. He did so good at 3. A winner in 51. I think on an off track he went in 52 or 51 also. And coming back really good, looking good at 4. And Yo Mister, I can't wait to see this guy. He's going to be racing this Tuesday, and then into the Nommers, the 6 Series. The sky's the limit. Somebody said, what about staking? it's a deep end of the ocean. We can look into that. I can revisit the staking, but for now, we're just lucky to have a very, very talented horse like Yo Mister. 1 hour, my opening. 1 hour, maybe the longest one ever. But and a couple of good stories for you. Outline what we're doing, how we're doing it. But again, the staking is the topic of the day. So for those of you who have to get bounces in, please do that by the 15th. I'd really appreciate it. For those of you that are sending me checks and would like a more expedited way, I can help you out with that also. Drop me a note, let me know, and I can explain to you how we are going to be able to do that. And for everybody else, you know what? It hasn't been the winter we wanted. You know, the gaps we couldn't fill in. I don't know if there was lots to learn, but we're going to revisit that portion of the stable for quite a while and look at how we can maybe make it better for everybody through December, January, February, now into March. So with 34 horses qualifying in the next few weeks, for the most part, 34 horses qualifying in the next few weeks. A number of our 2-year-olds just look fantastic. A lot to be optimistic about here at the stable.ca, as always. So, I'll talk to you all very soon. For those of you who spent 1 hour and 1 minute listening to me, congratulations. I do appreciate everybody tuning in and being a part of what we're trying to do here at the stable. Take care.